tell me, what is the proportion that we set up to solve percent problems? It's something you have to memorize.
Is over of.
Is over of equals, got half of it.
Blank over percentage.
Equals what?
Blank over percentage.
Blank over 100. A
Oh,
percent, not
100%.
blank, is really a percent over 100 because we don't know where the blank is going to be. So you need to be able to say this. It ought to be on your license tag. You need to be able to say this and know this. This proportion is going to make percent so easy for you. You have to memorize that. Is over of equals percent over 100. Once you have that, then you should be able to put the numbers that appear in your problem where they belong in that proportion. Remember that what is so great about proportions is that if it is actually proportionate, that means if it's the same thing, just out of a different whole, but the same amount of the whole is what we're looking at. This number times this will always equal the same thing as this number times this. And because that is the case, you can always find whatever is missing. The 100 is always there because percent means per 100. It means out of 100. And when you're trying to find percent, you are asking yourself, what part, your part out of your whole, is equal to what percent out of 100, or what number out of 100? Because when you have a number out of 100, that's percent. 1 out of 100 is 1%. 10 out of 100 is 10%. 67 out of 100 is 67%. 33 1/3 out of 100 is 33 1/3%. As soon as you know how much it is out of 100, that's what it is. These many per 100, you see. So that's why that's the percent. But because we don't always have 100 as a whole, we need to sometimes find percent when it's not out of 100. It may be out of 30. It may be out of 75. Whatever our whole is in our part, we are still comparing it to what would it be if there were 100. Because that's what the percent is. Okay? Remember, we have decimals, we have fractions, and we have percent. These are equivalent. This says 35 hundredths. This says 35 hundredths. This says 35 out of 100. It's just a different way to express it. To change a decimal to a fraction, because sometimes you're asked, what is the fraction equivalent of this decimal? You have to just read it, not calling it 0.35. The number is 35. Anytime you see a 3 and 5, it's 35. But 35 what? This is just 35. Anytime you have a decimal or a fraction, it's 35 out of something. So this is 35, and we know it's, as you said, hundredths, because hundredths are 2 numbers past the decimal. That's still 35, but now it's 35 what? Thousandths, you see. So when you have a decimal to change to a fraction, you read it and you write what you said. You said 35 thousandths. This is 35 thousandths. 35 hundredths. This is 35 hundredths. Now the difference is that once it is a common fraction, you have to reduce it if it can be reduced. And we know that 35 hundredths can, because what number goes into both of them evenly? 5 will. 5 will go into 35?
7.
And 5 will go into 100? So this as a fraction is the same as that as a decimal. 35 hundredths is equal to 7/20ths as a fraction. Now, if they gave me 7/20ths as a fraction and they wanted me to change it to a decimal, who remembers how to do that? How do we change fractions into decimals?
You divide
Divide what?
the top. 7 divided by 20.
Okay. 7 divided by 20. Anytime you want to change a fraction to a decimal, you divide the denominator into the numerator. I'd have to add my decimal point and just a couple of zeros. May have to add more, but we'll start with a couple. 20 will go into 70. 20 will go in 100. So that's how we get this as a decimal from this as a fraction. Okay? So to change a decimal into a fraction, read it, write it, reduce it. To change a fraction back into a decimal, divide the denominator into the numerator. To change a decimal into a percent, all you need to do is move the decimal point 2 places to your right, which means you are multiplying that number by 100. 2 places to the right and add your percent sign. If you want to change a fraction to a percent, first change it to a decimal. Because once it's a decimal, all you have to do is move it over 2 places and that's your percent. So you don't go from fraction to percent. Go from fraction to decimal. Always go from decimal to percent. Okay? So if it starts off fraction, you first make it a decimal, then make it percent. And then of course, to change the percent back to a decimal, just divide it by 100. Go to the left 2 places. And then to change that back to a fraction, you read it, write it, and reduce it. Okay? Questions before we go on? Anything about that so far that you do not understand? Anybody? Well, you know, ask questions if you have to. You know, if your partner was here, Brady don't care, Fred will ask questions. So speak up, you know what I mean? There's never a dumb question. If you don't understand it, it's a valid question. It don't matter if anybody else don't understand it. If you don't understand it, you're here for you. You're not here for anybody else. You're here so that you can understand it. And I don't care if my voice gets louder and louder and you think that I'm about to come pop you. Ask that question. Somebody was saying yesterday, one of the students was saying that to him it's like a family and the teacher is like a mother. I said, then you understand then why sometimes we get like, because you are like our children and you know, I know you can get it. Don't tell me you can't, so don't, and that's just my way. And it typically has worked all right. I've done this for over 30 years, but I did remember I had one student one time. And, you know, students always just loved me. We always got along well, and, you know, everybody was always, you know. And so this one, and we had clients from SRS, I got a message from her worker that said that her client was not very happy in my class, that anyway, I guess I had fussed at her or something, and she was offended. And so I told her, I said, look, now one thing I got you, if you're going to be in my class, now I'm going to fuss at you. You just have to have a thick skin. Now I'm going to fuss at you like I fuss at my kids. And when I'm fussing, it's not that I'm saying, you know, you're a dummy, you can't get it. No, I'm saying, I know you're smart and you can get it. That's my thing, you know, because it's not that difficult. People want to make it hard, but I just want people to understand it's not hard. And try to get it through your skull sometimes that no, it's not difficult just because it's called algebra and the smart people took it. That's just hype. None of it is difficult because the way I figure things in this world, period, is that there are not that many geniuses. And I always figured if that person over there can do it, I can do it because he ain't that smart. You know what I mean? They're not any smarter than you are. People that get this are no smarter than you are. Just at some point it clicked. And for some people, it just takes different things to make it click. So anyway, ask the questions, don't you know? So then I wondered, then on those surveys we did, somebody did say they wish they could ask more questions. And so I said, well, I hope that people aren't intimidated and don't want to ask questions because I'm going to fuss. I'm going to fuss. Probably if I've said it 10 times, I'm going to fuss. So what? But I won't stop saying it. If you needed that 11th time, I'm going to say it again. Fred, I said it 15 times for him. Every time I might say, okay now, but I'm going to say it again because it's very important to me that you get it. So if you really don't get it, speak up. We'll go over it as many times as we need to. Let's look at page 156. If you don't have a book, bring a couple while you're back here. Actually, 157. We started looking at some of these yesterday. Exercise 7, 157. And we started out just looking at the numbers, not the words. But you know that in life, you're very rarely going to be presented with a number problem unless you're taking a math test. You're going to have a word problem. Every problem in your life is a word problem. This is going on and I need to figure out how to figure out the answer. And so, but we're going to start off looking at these numbers just to show you the setup and to look at how easy it really is.